Hey, everybody. Welcome to another episode of the Mile High Game Guys board gaming podcast. I'm your host, Adrian.
I'm Zach.
And I'm Jeff.
And we're here to talk about a board game because it's a review episode. Oh, yeah.
Yes, it is.
Indeed. Correct. On all occasions.
Yeah. The game we are going to be reviewing this week is Euphoria, Build a Better Dystopia. This is a 2013 release from designer Jamey Stegmaier. Artist is Jackie Davis. Published by Stonemaier Games. It plays 2 to 6 players. Takes about 60 minutes. Zach, do you have a rules breakdown for us?
Yes, I do. In Euphoria, you're trying to reach the pinnacle of middle management in a dystopia.
All right.
On your turn, you can place a die, recall your dice, or resolve a dilemma. Placing dice will get you commodities, which can then turn into resources and artifacts, which will ultimately let you place stars on the board. When recalling your dice, you can when recalling your dice from the board, you need to roll them to establish their knowledge. If the combined knowledge is 16 or more, the smartest worker realizes this place sucks and bolts. Certain spaces increase the allegiance tracks, gaining extra abilities to players who have matching recruits. But whoever is able to place their 10th star first wins.
Indeed. That's real simple overview there.
I mean, yeah.
You're getting good at paring these down to the core essence.
This place sucks. That's the core essence.
Yeah. Man, this place sucks.
Yep.
Let's not live here anymore.
No.
Let's take it over and make it not a dystopia anymore.
But please.
But with blackjack and hookers.
Correct. Anyhow, let's get on to some initial thoughts here before we start this one. So, Jeff, what were your initial thoughts going into Euphoria?
I had seen it in our podcast recording room behind your head for years now. And
multiple years.
Yeah.
5 years minimum.
Yes.
And I remember it being a dystopia game and not knowing really anything about it at all until you guys were like, we should review this. And then I played it.
Okay.
But I don't think I've really heard much of anything about it besides the Jamey Stegmaier emails that'll have the breakdown of their development times and stuff. And I faintly remember seeing it on there at different points.
Right on. Zach, what about you? What were your thoughts going in?
Basically the same as Jeff. I had no real knowledge. I know some people liked it, but a lot of people like a lot of games. And so it was just, I know you had it for a while and we were just like, I know you've been wanting to review it. So we're like, okay, let's do it. I didn't have any negative or positive feelings towards the game before I started. Just from I knew it was a Jamey Stegmaier game. I was like, there's probably stars in here.
You were correct.
Yeah.
Spoilers for component section. There are stars.
Yeah. Which I already spoiled in the overview.
Shh. Don't point out things like that.
Yeah. And also, I will say, I remember when we were first going to play, I was like, this says it can play in 60 minutes with 6 people? What? That's gotta be bullshit.
Yeah.
So, I mean, yeah, that's basically what I was thinking.
Right on. So I had heard about this game a while ago as being a worker placement game set in dystopia was mostly what I had heard about it. A lot like Viticulture. I've heard this is one of Stonemaier's better games and more on the worker placement heavy, more towards the style of games that I like of his, since I wasn't a huge fan of Scythe.
Yeah.
And Megan loves young adult fiction, dystopia, books, movies, everything. So I thought this would be a good fit for a game to pick up for her. So I bought it for her. And apparently, according to her, I never told her that I bought it for her. And it just sat in here for a long time without anybody knowing anything. And then, yeah, we were finally getting around to review it, which I was really happy to because I'd had it for a while and hadn't even had a chance to play it. And I was really interested in it. I think the dystopia theme sounded interesting. And I was eager to try an earlier Jamey Stegmaier design to kind of, see what it was like with those, especially since I've heard, like I said, that games like Euphoria and Viticulture are more my type of Euro games. So those were my initial thoughts going in.
And this was a Kickstarter back in the day, right?
Yes. This was one of
the early successes.
Very first, yeah.
Board game Kickstarters?
Yes.
Okay.
One of Stonemaier's. I don't,
okay.
Not one of the first board game Kickstarters ever. So yeah, moving on over to components. Quick note, I do have the second printing that has some upgraded components from the first printing, but it is not also the Kickstarter edition from way back in 2013 either.
Which had like realistic resources, or did they add those in with like this version?
No, they've always had the realistic resources. One of the main changes for the second printing that I have is they updated some of the recruit cards, 16 of them, and they added 60 wooden stars. In the first printing, they were just cardboard punch-out stars.
Okay.
So that's the main thing. They also increased the amount of resource and commodity tokens, tweaked the rules, and changed the dice mold to make the number 3 easier to distinguish from the number 2.
Oh, yeah. I can see that. The 3 and the 2 on the original are a little similar.
Yeah.
But so that's the component I'm talking about, is that second printing one.
And then it also looked like the first one had a grayscale dystopian backside too. Those Kickstarter exclusive. But...
Oh, okay. So
yep.
But I think the components are really good. I like the unique dice with their custom faces. They're still, I think, easy enough to tell what they are. They still use the pips. There's a brief hesitation when they first were there, and it's like, wait,
for some people,
and then it's like, oh wait, there's pips that are there and visible. Like most other Stegmaier games, components aren't really an issue. The resources, like Jeff mentioned, are realistic resources. So like the energy is a lightning bolt. The bliss drug thing are little green fluffy clouds. The water is little water drops. Then different bricks and blocks and things for gold and brick and all of that stuff. Your player pieces in the second printing, you have the wooden stars, the 10 wooden stars. And then you also have a little head silhouette that's represents your intelligence, and a heart that represents your morale on those 2 tracks. Yeah. I don't know. I think the board layout's solid. From a graphic design perspective, it's clearly divided into different regions, which makes it easier to explain, I think, in some ways.
Yeah, well, and also it shows you what the requirements and the rewards are different. Not only they're different background, different location, and then also a different shape too.
Yeah.
So that's clear. You can be like square. The gray square is what you have to pay. The dotted square is where you have to put your die, and the circles are all the things you get from it.
Right.
So I think that's all very clear.
Yes. It comes with a whole bunch of cardboard punch outs for the buildings, little cardboard squares for the building tiles. You only ever use 6 of them in a game, but there is a whole bunch that come in it, so there's plenty of variability there. I think the card quality of the recruits and the artifact deck is really good card quality. I think they're linen finish.
That sounds right.
Yeah. Yeah, the cards are good quality.
Yeah.
You're never really holding the cards very much to
again
appreciate it enough.
Similar to the building tiles, where only a select amount of them will come out. Kind of the same thing. Like you have a full deck of recruits and a full deck of artifacts, but you're rarely gonna have more than 4 or 5 artifacts at one time, and you'll never have more than 3 recruits. In the game,
and the recruits just sit on the table in front of you.
Yeah, you don't even really
hold a hand of anything, and even the artifacts don't really.
Yeah, you draw it, you look and see what it is, and then you set it on the table while you do your other action selection stuff.
Yeah, so all the components really hold up well.
Yes.
Yeah.
Especially for being a game from 2013.
Yeah. It even comes with there's an area on the board where you put stars, and there's 6 spaces, but if you're playing with 3 people, you only use 3 of those spaces, and so it comes with little cardboard chits that cover the spaces you're not using, so you don't get confused and put more.
They've got
on
little
there.
X's on the flowery star that's there.
Yeah,
which is really good for newer people and stuff like that. I don't think you'd have to use them with if you're experienced at the game.
Yeah,
but yeah, it's nice that they're there.
Yeah, it's also not very hard just to throw them on the board during setup either. It's just a handful of them here and there. So.
Because you always, whatever your player count is, that's how many open spaces are supposed to be on there.
I think they do a good job with the art style.
Makes it look like a nice Utopia.
Well, parts of it, but then parts of it definitely, there's things in it that I think kind of seem reminiscent of a dystopia kind of world. There's the entire Subterra faction that's all clearly underground, and the Wastelanders, you definitely get the feeling okay, there's the Euphorians, and they're the happy-go-lucky Utopia city, but then there's all this other stuff outside of the city that isn't necessarily utopic.
Also, like shock troopers being repelled from zeppelins.
I couldn't tell because that's that's up there where the Icarites are.
Yeah.
So I couldn't tell if they're shock troopers or just people trying to get up to the zeppelins to get high,
Go
or
do drugs.
or if they get high and then just hang from the zeppelin, or like, whoa, I'm in the air.
No wonder I don't need food.
Yep.
I really like that the cards, so like the moral dilemma cards, they're on the back of the resource cheat sheet.
Yeah.
Which you don't really need. It's nice for like new players, again, just kind of have a reference for like, okay, these ones are resources, these ones are commodities. They are slightly different.
Commodities are basically tier 1, and resources are like tier 2. Basically.
Yes. But I like that on the backside of that, everybody has a moral dilemma card that you can, once per game, if you have the prerequisite artifacts, you can flip it over and then choose to resolve one of the two sides. One side is just place a star here. So it's just a free place to place one of your 10 stars. And the other one is draw 2 recruits and keep one of them. That's the only way you can ever get a third recruit.
Yep.
But I really like some of the theme on them, like what the moral dilemma is.
Mhm.
Like, you know, run away with your lover from another caste or accept an arranged marriage.
My favorite was like fight the power, fight for the power.
Yeah.
That was the baseball bat one.
No, that makes sense.
Yeah. It's like you standing in front of a throne with the baseball bat, or you standing behind the throne with a baseball bat.
That makes sense.
So I really like some of that little like kind of flavor, text, and art. Like some of the building locations you can build. Like one of them is like your friendly local board game burning
Pile.
Yeah.
Disassemble a teddy bear shop.
Never noticed any of those.
Yeah.
Arena of peaceful conflict.
Nice.
Yeah, so I really appreciate that stuff. It's subtle, like you said. It's easy to miss it, Zach.
Oh,
Like
yeah,
you said,
yeah.
you didn't notice any of those.
Yeah, if you aren't paying attention, then like especially with the like dilemmas and stuff too, because they all deal with the same. Like you get the same rewards either way.
Yeah,
And they're all pretty themed to like what you have to do on the shop. Like you need the teddy bear artifact to do the disassemble a teddy bear action. There.
That makes sense.
yeah. You need stone and fruit for the peaceful combat one, so you can just pelt the peaceful combatants.
Yes. But yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah, the names are pretty great. The Incinerator of Historical Accuracy.
That's pretty nice.
Yeah. And the like Arc of Practical Memories or something like that.
Yeah. I mean, I think that pretty much sums it up for components.
There's a lot of them.
Yeah, there's a lot of wooden bits. The player boards do, and I think this is a holdover from the first edition when there weren't as many. But the player boards essentially are just a ×1, ×2, and ×3 space on a little cardboard placards you get, and so you can keep track of resources on there in case they run low. Like especially if you're playing a 6-player game, I could see some of those resources maybe running a bit low if everybody's saving up to get 4 to use at a certain building.
Yeah, but with 5 players, I really never noticed. But also, I will say, even with 5 players, like half of the people were doing that and half weren't.
Yeah,
so it was already reduced some.
Yeah.
So
yeah, I just sort of threw them on there.
Yeah,
at no point were we low on resources in any of the games we played.
No. Right on. Then I think we can move on from components over to rules and rules explanation.
This seems like a game that would be complicated.
Yeah, especially like when you're setting up and you get the board out there, there's a ton of spaces. There seems like there's a lot going on. And even like trying to explain, like when you were explaining it that first time we played, Zach, like you had watched a video and so you had a pretty good idea of how it played.
Yeah.
You know, it was like, wow, this seems like a lot for a game that's supposed to play in 60 minutes.
Yeah.
But then once you kind of explain, like really the explanation is just like, okay, there's like different types of spaces.
You're explaining 1/4 of the board and you're like, everything else basically does the same thing, but with just different resources or different commodities in and different resources out.
Yeah, because there's the 3 different tunnels.
Yeah.
And then like 6 different building spots, but those are all doing the same thing. Just again, the only real different portion of the map is the Zeppelins for all the like the bliss area. That's the only one that works a little different. Each of its spaces work different,
and mainly because it's like it already has buildings built.
Yeah, they don't build buildings up there. They're just already there.
Yeah,
getting fucking wasted.
Yeah,
but yeah, I found that after you know the game, it gets a lot easier to teach too, and just explain it in a more fluid manner. And so far, nobody that we've taught the game to had any problem really.
No, I think because mainly there's only 2 things you do on your turn, and I think it's like the same sort of thing as like Manhattan Project. You're either placing workers or retrieving workers, and that's basically all you're doing until the game ends.
Yeah,
and you just explain the 3 different types of places you can put your piece, and then or your die, and then that's really all you need to say.
Yeah, and explain a little bit how like the one area where multiple die can go, like
Yep.
how the values stack up and
Mhm.
determine which reward you get, and then explain that like if you have doubles, you can play them both consecutively in the same turn.
Yeah.
They don't have to go to the same spot. That is important to clarify. Like one of the people we're playing with on our most recent game, he rolled doubles. He's like, I have to play this in the same spot, right? I'm like, no, not at all. Like you can if you want to. Like you could play one in a single spot and then use the second one to kick that one back out and give you your worker right back. Or you could play them in two entirely different spots if you wanted to get two entirely different things. Like that's up to you. Yeah, I think that once you understand what's going on the board layout is easy enough to follow, so it's not hard to explain what things are and how they do. Like you mentioned with the components and stuff, like the different design for resources in versus resources out, and like the different types of worker spots, like all of that's very clearly marked, which really helps in teaching it and then understanding those rules.
And then also because on your turn you're just doing one thing, unless you have doubles, that it can go by pretty quickly and you don't have to get bogged down. And also because like except for the building spots for constructing a building, you can't get blocked out at anywhere. So there's no like if you have a plan of what you want to do, you're still going to be able to do it come your turn, unless it's building a building.
Yeah. And even the building spots, like there's on any given space, it's one type of resource, and then the remaining three are all the same type.
Yeah.
So each building is only made up of 2 resources and only 4 spots.
Okay.
So as long as you're not hoping for the one resource spot, and as long as you're not in a position where everybody before you just completes
that's
the
what I
building.
mean, because depending on how many, that depends on how many people are playing.
Yes.
So with 3 players, it's only 2 spots. With 4 or 5 players, with 2 or 3 players, it's 2 spots. With 4 players, it's 3 spots, and 5 and 6 players, it's all 4 spots. So depending on where it is, you're like, I want to build that one. I have the stuff, but everybody in front of me has it, and if they take that spot, then I can't get it. That's the only true denial in this game.
Yeah.
Outside of being able to put stars in those specific areas, because those they only fit. Like if you're playing with 3 players, there's only 3 spots. Once all 3 of those spots are taken, then
that's it.
So
and they can all be by one person. Like it's not like it's reserved 3 spaces, 1 for each player. Like that'd be ridiculous.
Yeah. So really, it's just telling people the sort of the structure of the game and how it's a resource converter. You're taking these, you're converting them into these, and then you take those and you either turn it into points here or you turn it into points there.
Yeah. Explaining the allegiance track for the recruits is easy enough, I think. The trickiest thing there is just making sure that they, pointing out like all the different spaces on the board that have the symbol next for the output of an action that's like, hey, if you take this action, one of the outputs is bump that track. And then pointing, like making sure that you remember to bump the tracks. I think that we've had some games where people have taken actions and been too busy worrying about getting their resources or their commodities from the spot and have forgotten to bump the tracks. Ditto with like the mining tunnels. Like, got to make sure to remember when you take that mining tunnel action, you advance your little miner guy down the tunnel so that you're getting the rewards that are at the bottom of that as soon as you can.
Yeah, I think the only confusing thing that people kept tripping on was the whatever your active recruit was, getting those rewards versus the rewards that were out that weren't your active recruit's allegiance.
Because the recruits are the 4 different factions, and if you have things uncovered in those, only if you have that faction will you get that bonus.
Well, and the bonus is just a chit that gets put on, by the farm or the generator or whatever, but it's just always there, and
it's an additional resource.
It's additional resource, but it doesn't say like for
only this faction.
It just
just there.
Yeah, it's just there. And so I've definitely seen multiple times people like, oh, I'm gonna do this. I get these extra. Oh no, sorry, you're not. Do you have one? Yeah, I just go. Do you have that recruit?
So the Euphorians made this tunnel. Do you have a Euphoria?
Yeah. Did you help in this, or were you just fucking off in the clouds somewhere?
Yeah. Those tunnels are hard to dig. We're not just gonna let anyone use them.
No.
Clearly not.
Clearly not.
That's 3 water, damn
Yeah,
it.
Jerks.
When you build the building, anybody who didn't take part in building it,
you want to be in on that building.
you don't like anyone who has a star on that building. Whoever helps build that building, you get a star on there, and then there's a negative effect that hurts anybody that doesn't have
just at all times.
Yes, that doesn't have a star on there. And there are ways to get stars on there at least, which is good.
But it's not easy.
Yeah.
It's usually getting rid of 3 like a doubles or a 3 or
Three
a 2 of a
artifacts, yeah.
kind or 3 different artifacts to get your star on that building. Which sometimes is not ideal because cards sometimes aren't the easiest thing to get,
especially if your morale's low.
Yeah. I mean, if your morale's low, you'll just you can't,
because morale's just hand size.
Yeah. Which I think that stuff's easy enough to explain. I think the mechanic for losing workers, we didn't really talk about that. I think that's easy enough to explain. Essentially, whenever you roll your dice, you look at the total combined value of all of your available dice.
So not ones out on the board.
Yep. Just your available ones there. And then you look at your position on the knowledge track and you add those together. And if they are greater than or equal to 16, your highest valued worker in that available pool is now out of the game. It goes back to the supply until you spend an action to go hire more workers.
Yeah.
But I think that's easy enough to explain.
Mm-hmm.
And it states it clearly in the rules when you actually read the rules
Which
thoroughly.
But as people know, we don't
always
we
do
buck
that.
that trend.
Yeah, we don't do anything.
We're our
thoroughly.
own men.
So the first time we played, we were playing where the value of all of your dice are added to your intelligence track, and then you check the 16.
Yep.
Which surprisingly wasn't that much more brutal.
It just meant that people weren't willing to go to 4 dice that often because it was like, as soon as I do it, I'm gonna get 16 and just lose this one. So.
Yeah.
Or it doesn't matter, and you just lose your dice no matter what you roll, anyways.
Well, that's only you, Jeff.
No, it's because it's not no matter what you roll. You roll trip 6s, yeah, you're gonna lose a die.
Even if you had -2 intelligence and -2 knowledge, you
in
still.
other games, I was like bottomed out on that track, and still.
You were.
I've gotten screwed by that multiple times.
You have.
But it doesn't seem to come up that much.
No.
I was definitely the one that got it the most, though.
Mm-hmm. Just because, as we know from Blood Bowl, your dice rolls are not
ideal.
No, you're rolling high. You love rolling high in fucking Euphoria, which is you don't want to do that.
No.
And you like rolling low in Blood Bowl. You got to switch those.
That'd be nice.
Mm-hmm.
That'd be real nice.
Just switch your mindset. Just be like, okay,
that's how it works.
I'm gonna roll high in Blood Bowl now. Just say that before a game, and then tell me how that game goes.
Let you know Thursday.
Okay.
Yeah. I think that that now officially covers all of the rules stuff. So let's move on over into gameplay. Like we kind of talked about, like this game seems daunting, but once you actually get playing it, it plays really smooth, I think.
Mm-hmm.
Far faster than you would expect.
Yeah. The you only start with 2 dice, so you only have 2 workers.
Mm-hmm.
And so if your initial rolls doubles, then your first turn you can place both your workers, and then your second turn you're pulling them back, and you're already just getting into that. And you're never placing more than 2, maybe 3 workers. Like I've never seen anybody placing all 4. Nobody's rolled quad anything.
The only person that rolled triplets
was Jeff rolled trip 6s, and then the other guy that we were playing with,
Freddie
rolled
4s?
like trip 4s.
Yeah, that's what it was. Yeah.
In the same game, nonetheless.
Yeah.
But
what are the odds?
That's fairly unlikely that triples come out. So usually you're only doing 1 action per turn, and there's not a ton of different spaces to really bog down in, like, oh, where should I go? What should I do? It seems like most people are able to suss out what they want to do on their turn.
I would say like after the first couple ones, because especially if you're a new person, you're like, okay, I could go get these resources, or I could go get these or these commodities.
And it's usually energy or water, because that's what gets you more workers.
Yeah. And you're like, oh, okay, I guess I'll go get those. And then like eventually you start to see what, like, oh, I can start going to get these commodities to turn into these resources to start building these buildings, or, turn them into cards to start putting stars out, or, it becomes clearer as the game goes on. But in the beginning, it's definitely
also you need food and drugs.
Yeah. I mean,
every time you pull your workers back.
Yeah. If you don't care about morale, you don't need food and drugs.
Hand size.
True. Yeah.
But I mean, that's something that, especially early game, you don't need to worry about as much.
Unless you want, because if you feed them, you get 2 morale.
Yeah. But I will say that like I've seen winning strategies where your morale was super high and then super low.
Mm-hmm.
So it's not like you have to do it. It's just you have to be able to adapt it to whatever strategy you're doing.
Yeah. And your strategy is usually adapted by whatever recruit you got at the beginning.
Which are super all over the place.
Very much so. Like I had one that was a hacker that if I went into any of the like pooled worker areas, everyone that was there would gain a intelligence.
Mhm.
Their intelligence would go up, and I would gain a morale. So that was nice.
Yeah.
Just by putting a guy there.
Mhm. Where there are other ones where it's like, in this specific instance, you can use this one thing, and then you get this one-time benefit.
Yeah.
And then that one thing never happens, and you're like, great, worthless. And some of them have a restriction on them, which is ridiculous.
Yeah.
One of mine had you had to spend a morale in order to go to the Ichorites, but you also got something extra by spending spending a bliss not on a non-Ichorite market, but none of the ones that came out let me have a chance at that. So literally I had a guy that was like, great, I only get the bad thing, I don't get the good thing.
I had another good one where I could use energy instead of food or
Mhm.
bliss when I pull my workers back, and
Yep.
then I got to lower an intelligence and
Yep.
gain morale by doing that. And energy's generally easier to get than those other two.
Yeah. And then with recruits too, because they're 4 different factions, and everybody can see what one of their recruits are, but not the one that's hidden. That I've seen multiple times where like one person was like, I have the blue one up top and then the Wastelander brown one on the bottom, and everybody else had Euphoria or Ichorite.
Mhm.
And it's like, well,
That rep is not going
Yeah.
up ever.
I'm the only one that's gonna be able to move those things because
Yes.
So
And that was only in a 3-player game.
yes.
Which
Although, I
not
mean, it
ideal.
still happened in the 5-player game we played a little bit where
Yeah.
like the water faction down
Yep.
there, the Subterran track, just nobody was down there
What-
doing that.
Yeah, it was because
Well-
no one cared about water.
Mhm.
And one guy had his active recruit as the water or Subterra, and then I had the hidden one or the inactive one as Subterra. And by the time I would have been able to flip him, he had something to do with constructing markets, and we built all of them or something like that.
Yeah,
And so it's like, well, now he's useless, so I don't care about him. And also, I was getting points other ways. I was going to have to waste time to raise that up in order to get him. So it's like you have to learn. Oh, well, I just had a bad pick that time.
Yeah.
Want.
Because the only real way to push up rep is putting your stars on buildings that you didn't help build. That
Mhm.
action.
Yep.
The action of like after buildings are built,
Mhm.
and then
The base,
the 1 to 4
Yeah.
on all the like
the very
resource
low
pools.
of the resource pool.
Yep.
Which with 5 players, I felt like there was always dice on those,
Yeah. So it was
except for
hard.
blue because nobody used water.
Yeah. No one was down at the water.
Maybe if we had a different change of or a different composition of recruits, it might have been more balanced in that regard.
Yeah.
Maybe.
But because only 2 people had water and one of them wasn't pushing it at all,
Yeah.
and nobody cared about water because there's nothing on the board that really needed water,
Mm-hmm.
then because of that, we tended towards the other 3 ones,
Mm-hmm.
and then those just kept getting dice because of it.
Yeah. I think buildings can kind of pop it up every once in
Yes.
a while, but none of
No.
the buildings we built. And you don't know that until the building's done.
Mhm. Yeah. I will say we did not. There is a variant where you can draft the buildings and also draft the recruits. We did not play with that.
No.
So
It seems like you would need to know a lot about that.
you would
to
need
do
to know
that.
more. Yeah.
Yes.
Did we really talk about all the little resource spots, like the ones that you can put as many workers as you want on, and the different levels on there? Like the 1 to 4, you get like 1 resource and
Yeah.
a rep, and then you get 1 resource and lose a
A knowledge.
knowledge, and then the last one or more is 2 resources, but also gaining knowledge.
Because too many people get together, they start getting ideas,
Yeah.
and ideas are bad.
yes,
Yes.
but
Yeah.
unless it's generator, then you're just like, fuck it, I don't care.
Mhm.
Let's just jam them all together because I got ways to jam that knowledge right back down.
Yeah.
Just shock it out of them.
hmm
Yeah, I each game with different player counts has been very different.
Yeah.
I will definitely say, like, the biggest difference was 3 players and then more than 3 players.
Yeah,
Because buildings only require two spots to be filled with 3 players,
Mhm.
which if someone gets a doubles and
Like,
they have
boop, boop.
they can immediately build a building and both people are locked out. And that was the game where I trounced you guys.
yes,
Yeah.
I was
God.
able to I was able to get in a good
Rhythm.
cycle. Oh, yeah, good rhythm of being able to either build the building by myself, or one of you guys would start a building and then I would finish it,
Mhm.
or I would start it and you guys would finish it. So I was, when all 6 buildings got built super early, I was on all 6 buildings.
Yeah,
Adrian was on 4 and Jeff was on 2.
yeah, and which were the only stars I got that
Yeah,
game.
yes, they were. Whereas the first game we played, buildings came out and like the last 20% of the game.
Yeah,
Mhm.
geez, they hardly I don't know.
With more players, there's so many different like cool things to do in the game, but with more players, you see a lot more of that happen. Like,
Yeah.
like I think only in that last game did we finally complete a tunnel.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Which I think is just because you had more people looking to do that.
Yeah.
And then also, like, you had a little bit of, like, I know I had a little bit of hesitation of being the person to start a building, because especially if you didn't have that many dice,
Mhm.
you could put it there, and then if you're like, oh, I'm going to cover this brick, and then you look and you realize nobody else has brick and nobody else also has that gold. That
Yeah.
means, or somebody had the gold, but you covered the gold, so there's just 3 brick, nobody has brick,
Mhm.
and you're like, well, that die is just going to stay there.
It's fine. I got 3 more.
But I didn't really feel that with 3 or 4 players.
No.
Because with 2, you're just like, oh, I can just do that myself.
Yep.
With requiring 3 of them, you're like, I can do at least 1 more, and then somebody else will probably hop on.
Yeah.
It felt a lot more collaborative
Yes.
with 4 players, or with having to do all 4.
Yes. The other thing I noticed also with that 5-player game was that was the only game that we actually had to shuffle the artifact deck. Like we actually went all the way through the entire deck.
Well, it didn't help that somebody's ability was like, everybody got to draw cards or some shit like that.
Yeah. Well, I had that like 2 turns in a row where I had an ability where I could go to a spot where you normally have to pay 3. I could only pay 1, but then everyone else got to draw 1 if I did that. And I did that like 2 turns in a row, which helped everybody draw. But I mean, even still then, that's 10 cards drawn there. Yeah. Like it's a big deck. So the fact that we still burned through the deck with that.
Which I think is just also because there are just more people there. So.
Exactly. I think one of the things that helps keep it from bogging down, I had mentioned earlier, like people don't seem to have too much AP with this game. And then also I think one of the things that helps keep the game overall moving, especially at higher player counts, is the fact that aside from those building construction sites and aside from the areas where the numbers pile up for the main resource collection, everywhere else you just kick the other worker out. So like there's not a lot of blocking. There's
no blocking.
Yeah.
Except
for the building areas.
Except for the building and then the putting down the stars.
Yes.
That's about it.
So you don't have to worry about somebody like going before you and taking where you were planning on going, because if they do, you're just like, oh well, now I just kick you out. And then also the fact that people are getting kicked out pretty regularly means they're getting their dice back. They're
without
able
having
to
recall.
Exactly.
Which is usually big. That's it does. I know at least once or twice I'd be like, oh, I could go here, but then I'm just going to kick Adrian out and he'll have a die ready. I don't want him to have a die, because I know there was one part where I was like, if Adrian gets a die, he's going to put something out before me. I don't. It was for a building, and I don't
want that to.
I don't want that to happen. So I'm going to get that somewhere else.
Or you pull all your dice,
and
then someone kicks your guy out, so you have to roll another die to try and lose a worker.
Yeah. You're like, oh, I'm only going to pull back 3s because I think 4 I'll hit it.
No,
and then you roll trip
no.
6s and you lose 1.
Yeah.
And then, oh, you just lost 1.
Jeff, this is yours now, I believe.
Yeah,
you've got a pair of 6s out that you have already rolled. Here's another die. Roll that. Don't roll too high.
Roll a 1. Fuck you.
Yep. Although there is a recruit there, because there are some recruits that can be pretty mean.
Yeah.
Like
that one you had.
Yeah, it was like you spend a morale and I get a resource, and then instead of when I bump somebody off, and when I give them the die back, they don't roll the die. They are just whatever knowledge that one was before. So I could be like, I'm gonna take this 6, put it here. Jeff, enjoy this 6.
Yep. Brutal.
Yeah. Or like the one that was like raising people's knowledge and stuff like that.
Yeah. Which I think that one would have been more entertaining on a higher player count instead of just like 3 players. Because it seemed like every time I used it, both of you were able to just be like, oh, back down.
Yeah. But also, if we were playing like we were playing previously,
we're like, everyone's here. Everyone go up in knowledge.
Yeah. Well, not just that, like how we were saying, like you always count knowledge at every point in time.
Yeah.
That would be brutal too.
Yeah. Because what made us look that up is because Jeff raised Adrian's knowledge and that bumped him from 15 to 16. And I was like, yeah,
what
Jeff.
Happens?
Yeah, I was like, yeah, Jeff, you fucking made him lose a die. And Adrian is like, I don't like this, so I'm going to make sure there's a rule in my favor.
And there was, thankfully.
Yeah.
Which also would have came in it probably would have came up in the most recent game we played, where you had the ability when you kick somebody out, their dice becomes what yours is. Because I guarantee there would have been some time I would have been sitting at like 15 points, or like I'd have like a pair of 6s at 12, and you'd kick out a 1 with your 6 and be like, oh, Adrian, have a 6.
Now that would still count if you had like with all your active dice.
I think it's only when you roll. I think it specifically said when you roll is when you check knowledge.
No, you lose it.
But that's just why you would try not to be in that position. If you know somebody has that ability.
Exactly. No, that's what I mean. Yeah.
And they might be making a suboptimal move to make you lose a worker and, all that fun
Just being
stuff.
spiteful.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Duh.
Yeah. Not too proud to be spiteful.
Yeah. We played all of our games just random setups for buildings and the faction cards. There are advanced rules in the book for drafting potentially both of those different things to where you'd have a little bit more control over what buildings went where, what cards you ended up with versus just, randomly getting what you get. I'm not entirely sure I feel like that's necessary in this game. Like, I didn't feel like we were particularly hurt in any way by buildings being random or,
because even if you know what buildings are going to come out,
the random is enough.
Yeah.
Unless you're like real high level Euphoria players.
Yeah. Because even if you choose the 6 buildings, they're going to be in random spots. And so you don't know if you're planning for the one that has the glasses. You're like, well, it's either going to come up early or it may come up too late, or we might not even build it at all. With the recruits, you get 4, which is good enough to be able to at least choose one good one and one decent one.
Yeah, I could see that.
Yeah, and there's enough that you could just say, if one person gets 4 and they're like, all of these are garbage, I could mulligan it and just give them 4 new ones or something like that.
Yeah.
One thing you just used the word randomness. We haven't really talked about like how random the game is. It's definitely on the higher end of randomness.
Yes.
For a worker placement game.
Yeah.
It's heavily mitigatable.
Yes.
But
it's not like oh God, it's Yahtzee.
No, but still, you roll 666s, you're losing a worker.
Like, there's just no way.
If you roll 111s, you're taking 3 actions this round.
Yep.
But you're not getting then the higher actions. There's
the numbers only matter for
the three specific spots.
So if you're trying
4 spots,
if you're trying to get that rep up, sweet, you could get to do 3 actions. The rep's going up 3 times,
which is huge.
Yeah, but if you don't care about those spots, then that number doesn't matter.
Yeah.
So,
getting the artifact cards. I mean, it's a random draw.
There's 6 or 7 different types, and like we said,
getting doubles is super powerful.
Yeah, if you get 2, that counts as 3. So that's going to help you. And then also, dilemmas are either 2 artifact cards or 1 specific one, and there are some buildings that require a specific, like a bear or glasses or something like that.
And not getting those artifact cards can be
Yeah, I remember the one game I won. I remember I put a star out, which let me draw 1 artifact card. It was the glasses, and one of the buildings we built was like, use glasses and you get an extra star, get another star. And I was like, sweet, I'm going to then play this and get another star. And Adrian was definitely oh god damn it, Zach.
Yeah,
little salty.
Yeah,
I'm actually pretty surprised at how much the randomness didn't bother me in this game, considering there is a solid amount of it. I think that the randomness of your initial faction cards is pretty well mitigated by the fact you get 4 and you keep 2 and only 1 of them goes face up. So really you're picking 1 of 4. The building tiles, that randomness doesn't bother me at all, because especially at this point, where I don't really know all of them, they're functionally random.
Basically it's just, it flips over and you're like, it was just an unknown, and now this one requires 4 water and a teddy bear or something, because you just got to drown it really hard.
Yeah. And it similar to Lord's Waterdeep. They're all interesting options. It's just which ones come out.
Yeah.
And then, the dice rolls, just in my experience with the game, it's not hard to keep your knowledge down on that main track. And as long as you keep your knowledge down, with the exception of just ridiculous rolls like a 666.
Yep.
Or just getting unlucky.
Yeah. But you have to get, if you're keeping that down at 1 and you're only rolling 3 dice, you have to be pretty unlucky to hit 15 on 3 dice.
But then you can also have your knowledge at a 2 or a 3 and be rolling 4 dice. And if you're lucky, you're getting all 4 dice.
Yeah.
Which happened to me on multiple times. And every time I did, Jeff was like, fuck you, Zach.
I remember the exact time. I was like, I'm going to roll 3. It's going to end up bad. Yep, 666s. That sure was bad.
Yeah. And then I rolled my 4 dice, and it was a 1, 2, 2, and a 4.
I was like, clearly, fuck you.
Yeah. I didn't even get double digits with those dice.
No doubles. Darn.
You only broke double digits barely with your knowledge.
My knowledge could have been at max, and my guys still would have been stupid enough.
Yeah. And the dice are a big part of it. I think it all evens out overall to doubles versus, good high numbers versus good low numbers. But for the games that we played, like not many people lost workers.
No.
Of course, I lost workers in all of the games
Yes.
that I played with you people.
Yep.
I only lost them in the one game where we were playing with the wrong counting rule for dice,
Yeah.
where we just counted them all.
It's pretty brutal losing a worker, though.
Mhm.
It doesn't really happen to everyone.
No.
It can only happen to like maybe one person, or it can happen to the same person twice.
Yeah. I did in that same game where I had 4 dice. I did also lose it. I did roll.
Yeah.
I had 3, and I rolled a 6, a 5, and a 4, and I was like, well, shit.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
I think that it also helps. Like, yes, it does suck to lose a worker because of a bad roll, but I actually think that the resource cost for getting a new worker isn't very high in the first place, and then when you pair it with the fact that you're either going to lose 2 intelligence on the track
Mhm.
or gain 2 morale,
yeah.
like those alone are almost worth that action. And then the fact you get a
Yep.
worker right back, and they're
Pretty much, unless you're at the stage of the game where you're like, I have all the things I need. I just need to start placing them to start converting them. Then you basically lose
yeah.
25 or 33% of your workforce, and you're
Yeah.
like, oh, then you have to spend time recalling if nobody bumps you out, and then you're like, I could spend time that I don't have to get those things, and yeah. So it can still hurt you at certain parts, but in the beginning, it's like you go up to 3 and then you lose it on the next, whatever. It's
Yeah, it sucks, but
Yeah.
you really only wasted maybe 3 turns.
Yeah. I think pretty much, unless you had someone who just every turn just rolled, they had 4 dice, they always
Garbage.
rolled 4 1s. It was just always 4 1s or 4 2s or even 4 3s.
They would definitely run away with the game.
Yeah, they would run away with the game, but
It's possible.
that's possible. But I mean,
but some people might not enjoy even that level of randomness in
Uh-huh.
the game.
that at that crucial point, I got a triple, and Adrian, you didn't get any doubles or anything. And that even though we were tied, I was able to push ahead just because I got
Yeah.
lucky with that roll. And then I was like, oh, sweet, I can get that thing that you thought you'd be able to have because I got lucky and rolled 2 dice. I get to take both spots in the building when I wasn't able to before.
Yeah.
So, and that's also the danger too with knocking people out of the building or out of a spot because they roll the die, and if they have another die, it's like if you give them a double, then they're going to be super ready on that next turn.
Yes.
So it's something to always keep in mind.
Definitely. And yeah, I agree, Jeff. Like, this is definitely high on the randomness, especially for a worker placement game.
Mhm.
So I think that kind of, is something to be aware of if you're like, oh, it sounds like a cool worker placement game. Like, that randomness, especially for people who traditionally like worker placements, that's not something that you want in a game. But I didn't feel it was too bad.
No.
So,
It's refreshing.
yes. I don't know if I'd go that far, to be honest.
Well, than your usual worker placement game.
Yeah.
Dry
Mhm. Yeah.
action.
Mhm.
Bullshit. One Vikings.
The one complaint I do have with this game, speaking of dry and everything, that it has a cool and interesting theme, but man, it does not come through in gameplay
No.
at all for me.
No, it's like because you guys are mentioning these building names, and I don't dystopian. I don't really care about that much, so I never was like, "Ooh, what does this building say?" And I'll admit there are some games that would have themes I do, like Dinosaur Island. It was like, "Oh, what's this new thing? What's this new thing? Oh, this is great." And then so you can bring the theme out more like from yourself. But for me, because I didn't care about it, I was like, I never got any of the theme of it. It was always just like, "Oh, here's a building that takes these." I literally have no idea why because I don't care.
Yeah.
And that is like you said, it's a shallow amount just because it's like it's oh, you're using water and bear because it's called the thing where you drown a bear or whatever.
Disassemble a bear.
Yeah, I'm drowning. You're just drowning. It's a whole bunch of teddy bears being drowned.
Correct.
But if you didn't care, like if you didn't care enough to look there, you're just like, okay, I just need 4 water and a bear. I don't care. Like I'm just getting these resources and turn it into what I need to get the stars out.
Victory
Yeah.
points.
I think one of the few areas where the theme does slightly glimpse through is when you recall your workers and you can either feed them or drug them to boost your morale.
Yeah.
And then if you don't do that, they get unhappy. Like that's
Mhm.
the only area where like it routinely feels like thematic.
Yeah. And then also for me, the dilemmas, even though they're all unique in terms of what they need, like you said, you need the baseball bat to do, oh, you're going to fight the power or fight with the power because the rewards are just the same. Like as soon as I saw my first one in the first game and I saw that they were all the same, I'm like, okay. And then I didn't even pay attention to whatever it was. It was just, what do I need? And then because you get the same either way. It's just what's that one artifact I need in this particular instance, okay, that's the only thing that's pertinent on that card.
But I think the flavor came through most on those like to recruit or put a star on.
Yeah,
Where that- where you got
and
to-
that's where Zach's saying he didn't think of that at all.
So
Yeah.
it's like where the actual artifact card comes in and any
No, so I was
possible-
saying is that like if I think because the rewards were the exact same,
yeah,
that it was just like what artifact do I need to get this? Otherwise, it's just 2.
at least there was art.
No, you're not. I mean, I'm like I said, it's all for me. It's just a shallow level of theme. It's there. It's ever present on everything, but
Yes,
it doesn't. And it's probably because I don't really care about dystopian that it didn't pull me in at all.
Yeah.
It's not like a game where it was dunked in theme and pulled out and it's still just dripping with
Yeah.
it. Instead, somebody took a little mister bottle and
Yeah.
just spritzed it all around there.
like watering their plants.
Yeah. Here's a little theme.
Yeah. It's water. It's
Some
it's
lazy,
it's a cactus.
Yes.
It's just like a spray of it every month. You're fine. Okay.
which is perfect for me.
Yeah.
And
And also because you care about the theme too.
yeah, a little bit. I mean, I thought
Yeah.
it was an interesting theme. Like,
Uh-huh.
I definitely like
Well, the fact that it was about dystopian at least pulled you into like it
a
made
little
you
bit more.
interested
Yeah.
in,
Yeah, definitely.
which it just bounced off me completely. So
Fair enough. Yeah. I don't know. Can you guys think of any other gameplay stuff you wanted to talk about?
near the end, it ramps up really quick.
Yes,
So
it does
once-
have a dramatic curve.
Yeah, once the buildings start getting built,
Yeah.
the stars start getting dumped
Mhm.
out there.
And then once the allegiance tracks start going up, but I've had games where 3 out of the 4 were all on the star, so topped out. And I've also had it where only one of them
No
was able to get past the part where you can flip your card over.
Yeah.
That's also depending on how many people are playing, I think too.
Yeah. Which actually that reminds me of one of the things that has to do with how that curve ramps. I know our first game that we played, Paul really didn't like it. In fact, he has declined to play any of the games of it that we've played since. But in that one, we didn't build buildings at all. So that one we maxed all 4 of the tracks and people had piles of resources. But it wasn't until way late in the game that people started building buildings. That was also the longest game we played. That one took almost an hour and a half.
Yeah, and then that one you definitely felt like you were just doing the same thing
Over and over.
You're just turning everything into cards. And then that's why on that second game that we played, I was like, all right, I'm just going to go full on buildings. And that's all I did. My morale was 1 the entire time because I didn't care about cards.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I definitely felt a difference in that regard.
Yeah.
And also, we were playing wrong, too.
Yes, we were playing it wrong. But I think that's just something that especially is good to point out to people that,
Mhm.
in that first game, none of us had played before. So we were going in completely blind. And so we didn't know that, if you neglect buildings, like those are a major source of stars.
Mhm.
Potentially, if you can get in on every one of the buildings with just one spot,
Mhm.
that's 6 of your 10 stars
Exactly,
right there.
yeah.
And then you get a couple on some of the other little area control flower
Mhm.
thingies and maybe max 1 of your 2 recruit tracks and boom, there you go, you just won.
Mhm.
Whereas if you ignore those, then there's less action spaces, there's less points, and it can just drag, and you're just, like you said, endlessly converting resources to get cards
Mhm.
and then not doing anything with those cards.
Yep.
Which can be frustrating. So yeah, let's move on here to final thoughts then.
Sounds good.
Zach, let's start with you.
Okay. I think I think there's a lot of good mechanics in this game. And I do like that it plays quick. I like that it uses dice in a somewhat interesting way. And there's a sort of push your luck aspect to it because it's like you can get a lot of workers and hopefully get a lot of things done, but if you roll bad, right, then it's going to hurt you. And so there's a little bit of danger in that regard. But I know for me, I feel like I've gotten all that I care to get out of this game now, and I know that we only play with 6 out of the 18 buildings or whatever. And it's like, oh, there's a lot of variability in there. And it's like, I mean, there is, but for me, like a building that's like 4 water and a bear versus a glasses and you need gold or something like that. It's like, that I'm not going to be like, oh, this is a new strategic level because I have to plan for this. That for me is it's just low variable. Like there's a lot of low variability for game setup. And especially because you don't even know what you're getting until halfway through the game,
Right.
that it just doesn't, like, that part doesn't grab me much at all. And then like I said, because I didn't care about the theme at all, nothing stood out to me like we were in a dystopia or anything like that. And then it just felt, and I sort of agreed with Paul, but to a lesser extent of, It's just a resource converter. You're just turning commodities into resources or cards into points, which a lot of games do have that, obviously.
Yes.
But I think the fact that even though it's a worker placement, there's no blocking, really.
Yeah.
I think that hurts.
It's a pretty kind worker placement.
Yes, which I think the only saving grace is the main saving grace is how short it is. And I can see how people would like this game, and I did see different paths on how to get points. Sometimes you go heavy on those heavy on cards, so you go high on morale. Other times you're like, I don't give a shit about morale, I'm just going into buildings. I like because one of the things Paul said was like, it's too similar in ways to get points. It was just cards, and it was because we were not playing the right way.
Right.
Also, something we forgot to mention, apparently there's trading in the game.
Oh shit! Yeah, I always forget about trading.
And just like in Rising Sun, where there like the negotiation, there was like an empty space between you and that, and you had to find it. It felt like it
I never felt it needed.
Yeah, I never felt like it was needed, and it was just like
the little bit of trading in that last game we played, where my power was give someone a resource, and I got to draw 2 cards.
Yeah, and so that wasn't even trading; that was just using the power.
Yeah,
it just never.
That was the only moving of my stuff to anyone else's.
Yeah.
Although what could have been interesting, and if we thought about playing with more of the trading. Sorry to kind of interrupt. But Jeff, you could have very easily been like, Zach, I'll give you the gold. Like I have to give somebody gold to get this. Zach, if you give me a food, I'll give you the gold.
Yeah. Or it could be like
Zach gets a good conversion, and you still get something for it.
Exactly. Yeah. But it just it never felt like the game. It was there, but it was just it felt like it was just a box to the side of us. Like we're playing the game in here, and there's a box over there, like in the corner, dusty.
We never really
open it. Oh shit, there's trading? What? But it never felt like the game needed it.
No.
But overall, it's a fine enough game, but as you say often, Adrian, I'm dead inside. I never felt anything from the game. So that usually means I'll play it, 3 or 4 times, and then I'm like, okay, I get the game. I've gotten everything I needed from the game, and I'm okay if I don't play again. I know there's an expansion coming out. Depending on what that is, I would try it again if it added something more.
Something that seems interesting.
Yeah, something. Yeah, not just like horizontally more, but like vertically more, if that makes sense.
Depth, not breadth.
Yes.
It's
a 5th faction.
A new sideboard.
Yeah, no, fuck that. I wouldn't care about that. But
you wouldn't care about a new sideboard?
If it was just a 5th faction that did all the same thing.
Oh, I see what you're saying. When you said 5th faction, for some reason I immediately thought of 5th player, even though it plays 6 players. So I don't know what was happening there.
We're gonna add a tunnel to the sky.
Yeah.
It's a ladder.
Yes.
It's just a really tall ladder.
The ladder to heaven.
They just want to talk to Kenny.
Yes, exactly. I mean, it seems he'd be where the drugs are.
Yes, definitely.
True. Very true.
Jeff, what about you? What are your final thoughts on this game?
Zach has said most of it. I like that there's a little bit of randomness, even though the randomness usually fucks me pretty hard, generally.
It seems you're okay with randomness. Like your randomness is usually okay unless it's dice. Dice just fuck you, it seems like.
Yeah, that's fine. I've accepted it. Yeah.
I mean, obviously not to the degree of Adrian.
No,
but
no.
But it didn't really affect you on this game. Other games that are more heavily on randomness, that's when they truly fuck you over.
Yes.
Yeah. I have accepted it. Adrian rages against the storm.
Yes, yeah.
Yes. Old man shouts at clouds.
Yeah.
I like that Scythe used these pieces.
Yeah. Right. I love, who was it? I think Paul said it was like he saw this and it was like, did he just order a million stars in Utopia? And he's like, oh shit, I have all these extra ones. To Scythe.
To Scythe with it. I do not like this game under 4 players. I think 4 would be the minimum you would want to play this game to be enjoyable. The 3-player game that we played came up with like the ultimate in why you don't play this game with 3 or less players, which was I had 2 factions that no one else had, and then they were able to just jam the pedal on those reps, and it was just me kind of dinking away one little piece at a time to try and get those reps up.
And the fact that you got screwed on dice.
Yeah.
And then I and Adrian did not.
Yeah.
And we got doubles a lot of times. And so and the fact that because buildings only required 2 spots.
Yeah.
If you have doubles with that, you just like, oh, I'm just going to get this and this. I remember it was just like, all right, Jeff, don't roll a 1, 2, or a 4, or else you lose shit.
Yes. It's good.
Which thankfully it was a short enough game.
Right? Yeah, that's the saving grace about this game. I think it's a good game, possibly great game, because it plays in 60 minutes, even with that higher player count.
Yes.
I enjoy the much more interactivity on the higher player counts. You have more dice doing more things on the many different spots on the board to make those rep tracks go up. The tunnels dig more. I just sort of wish in the lower player counts you had more interactivity stuff in it. Some of the recruits do cool stuff, but they're super specific on those like player counts. Like some require like a lot of players so you can like fuck over multiple people. Some require like no one else to be on one of those spots for you to get a benefit.
Alone. Yeah. So
like I had that come up and I was like, it's a 5-player game. There's no way I'm gonna even try that.
Mm-hmm.
And it's all interesting decisions. Yeah, I think it's pretty cool. I hope that expansion adds more cool stuff.
I would agree with that. Yeah.
Real quick before I start my final thoughts for player counts, it is significantly listed as best at 4th, with best at 5 right behind. 63% for 4, 55 for 5. For 3, 74% recommend it, but 3 is also one of the ones that has the highest not recommended level there. I think you just have to kind of know what you're getting into.
Right.
In news that does not bode well for Megan and I, who both like this game, as you'll hear in a moment, 40% not recommended at 2 players.
You're just gonna have to wait for that Automata. No.
Yeah, maybe
Automata.
Play
Onomatopoeia. We just gotta wait for the Onomatopoeia to come out, and then
me and Megan versus the game. But anyway, for my final thoughts, you guys have said a lot of things that I feel about the game. The fact that I'll just start right off. Like the thing that really keeps this game in an area where I'm interested in it is that not only does it play in 60 minutes, it plays in 60 minutes at fucking game night.
Yeah.
Like that's awesome. Like with distractions, with drinks, with chit chat.
With that one, you will have to be like, whose turn? Like you will need to prompt people,
especially
more.
If you're playing at 4 or 5.
Exactly. Yeah.
But even at that high player count,
yes,
which is a rare occasion
for a worker placement.
To be able to knock out a 5-player worker placement at game night in an hour is great. That has me very excited about the potential. Like I would never hesitate to throw this in my bag on my way to game night. Yeah, and maybe it teaches easy enough now.
Yeah, I think you definitely could find people to play that there.
Yes,
because I know your close friend group not much interest in playing it. So
no, between you kind of being done with it, Paul not ever wanting to play it after the one play of it.
Yeah,
Jeff at least sounds like he'd be interested maybe playing again. And I know Megan really liked her one play of it on Sunday and wants to play some more.
When she crushed all of us on her first time ever playing.
Which is not an uncommon occurrence with her.
Yeah. We now know how you feel.
Yes. So as to my more in-depth thoughts on it, I think that because it plays so short and it is light enough as a worker placement, the randomness doesn't get to me the way I was nervous that it would. It also is mitigatable enough. The biggest nervousness I was worried about was the losing workers. However, workers are cheap enough to purchase, and furthermore, when you're playing the correct way with checking that intelligence level, the threat's not really there unless you're up to 4 workers or you just have a really bad roll. And I'm fine with like getting like really unlucky versus like, oh, you were just barely unlucky and you got screwed. That makes that a lot more acceptable for me. I actually really, the more I think about it, especially like while I was listening to you talk about it, Zach, something kind of came into mind. One of the things I do really like about this, kind of the way they did this interesting twist with worker placements, where the more workers you have, the more likely you are to lose a worker, is interesting to me because I play a lot of worker placements. It's my favorite genre of board game, and typically it's a very heavy strategy to get as many workers as possible as soon as possible. Whereas Euphoria does a good job of kind of curbing that. Like, you could rush for 4 workers, but the longer you have 4 workers, the more likely you're going to have a roll where you're going to lose one of those workers. And so it and it
doesn't, even with just 2 workers, you're not going to you can not feel it as much if you are choosing where you're going, where other people are going to want to go, so they kick you out.
Yes.
And so you basically get to do the same amount with, you're basically recalling less, which is the only real downside of having less workers, is that you have to recall more.
Correct. And so I think that's a really interesting kind of twist on that. Also, my dice rolling bad luck tends to be that I just roll low all the time.
Mhm.
So in games where I want to roll high,
Yeah.
I just can't. Whereas in this game, I don't want to roll high, and that's good because I still just can't roll high.
Yeah. But
Yeah.
it's good in this game.
Yes.
Whereas Jeff Surge, it's just whatever the opposite of what the game wants.
Correct. So,
But it is, I do find it interesting that this game has, a low to decent amount of randomness, and it is a very, like you said, a safe, friendly worker placement with very little blocking. And I know those are two things you tend to
not like.
Yeah.
And I think the main thing that has saved it is it fits a niche that a lot of other worker placements don't. For me, like they take too long.
It's all about that time.
yeah, and the people I can play it with. Like I said, like for me, the big part of where I'm enjoying this game is that it gives me enough of what I like out of worker placement in a short, accessible package that I can get other people into. Like this, for me, I think is a good intro worker placement game. It's got a light pasting of theme, a little mist of theme, enough to maybe draw some people in. I know some people were coming by and they're like, "Oh, that seems cool. That's a cool idea." Like I don't know if that'll hold up after they play it. And they're like, "Oh, that theme is non-existent in actual gameplay, aside from the thematic reason of why you're losing workers."
Yeah. I think that would just be, you'd get as much out of it as you put into it in that regard.
Yes.
Like you said, when you're just like, "Oh, look at these buildings. This is great. I'm taking, I have to get it." It's like you can find it there if you look for it,
right?
But if not, it's just you gotta break that glass. Otherwise, it's just you're like, "Oh,
yes." So yeah, I like this game. I'm interested in playing it more. I'm glad that I finally got it to the table and got to play it. It's not amazing. It's nowhere near, it's not going to be on my, it might show up on like a top 10. If we'd done the top 10 under 90 minutes, Euphoria probably would have made that because it fits a very specific niche in that time.
Well, here, you know what? If we do, I was going to say if we do under 60, that'd have to be 59 and lower, so it doesn't count.
60 and lower.
We'll do
60 and lower.
61. How about that?
Okay.
Less than 61 minutes.
Fair enough. But yeah, I'm really interested in the expansion. There's not hardly any information on it. The most recent Stegmaier email mentioned that they are currently working on art, playtesting, and the Utopia rules for the solo player. It has also been being developed for like 3 years and still not coming, although...
Well, I don't know if you heard of this game called Scythe. I'm pretty sure that
took up a bunch of time, yeah.
Mainly because he's the only full-time worker for Stegmaier.
Yes.
So.
I think in like March 2016, the expansion was 15% done.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And I think Scythe wasn't even out by then.
He has alluded to the likelihood that it will be out this year, though.
Yeah.
So,
well, especially because Scythe's done.
Yep.
And viticulture and Tuscany and all that stuff's done too. And so it seems like he actually has time to focus on it.
Yes.
And Charterstone's done.
Yeah. So I'm very interested in the expansion, mostly because if I had one complaint about this game is that it is too shallow. I do like a little bit more depth and meat to my games, especially for longevity's sake.
Yeah.
I don't know what kind of legs this game's going to have.
Yeah, and I'm pretty sure this game's vegetarian because the food is just a peach or something or an apple.
Yeah, they have not resorted to cannibalism out in the wasteland yet.
But they know a fruit diet will give you pancreatic cancer. Steve Jobs had.
Yeah, yeah. So that's Euphoria, building a better dystopia. Various degrees of meh to but no like holy shit yes or fuck this no.
No. You're the only one that tends to be fuck this shit.
True.
I should also mention the Kickstarter campaign. If you want any history on why the apocalypse happened, it was actually in the Kickstarter campaign.
Oh, really?
Okay.
Yeah.
Do you have that pulled up?
I do. It's quite long.
Oh, okay.
And there is another game set in this universe too. The leaders of Euphoria.
Yes.
Find a better success.
Choose a better oppressor.
Oppressor. Yeah, that's what it was. So if you like the theme, there's still and you want more than just this game, there's another game that has, and that one is in the style of Good Cop, Bad Cop. Yep. But I've heard it's better
social
than that.
deduction.
Yeah.
So if you want to pick this game up, if you listen to the review, it sounds interesting and you want to pick it up, it is available pretty widely. Prices range somewhat drastically, but typically in the $40 to $50 range. It is currently $80 on Amazon. I don't know why it is so high over there. Well, although apparently there's a bunch of different Amazon listings, depending, I guess, on who's actually selling it. But yeah, should be able to find it for around $40 to $50. I think personally, I'd say that's a bit high for this game.
I think a lot of that is just the components.
Yeah, it does have really good component
Yeah.
quality, like everything Stonemaier does.
Mhm.
They don't fuck around when it comes to components.
No.
Jamey just absolutely kills it when it
Yep.
comes to components. Yeah, so feel free to pick that up if you're interested in it. We didn't have any emails, but we did have some BGG responses. So Zach, do you have those pulled up?
I do. This first one is from Bryant. As cool as Scythe is, I've always thought Euphoria has had the best theme of any of the Stonemaier games. Yet it seems to have fallen far short of the popularity of Scythe and Viticulture. I'm hoping that the upcoming expansion helps raise Euphoria up closer to the other titles. I've heard it will also include the Automa option as well.
Yeah, it definitely is going to have an Automa. They're, like I said, that's one of the things that they are currently
Mhm.
working on fleshing out for that, and then just play testing the rest of the expansion.
Yeah.
Yeah, I still haven't got a chance to play Viticulture. It's another one that people have told me that I would like as far as like fairly medium
Mhm.
worker placement kind of action
Yeah.
type games. I'm nervous
I
that
know, 'cause
Viticulture will
the
never
Vinos.
live up to Vinos.
Yeah.
So yeah, I'm definitely interested in the expansion as well.
Yeah. Next one is from Paulo. I like that he's just a constant contributor.
Dude, I'm loving
Yeah.
Paulo's interaction. It was so great getting to meet him at Liera. He's an awesomely nice dude. I'm really glad that he's actually super active now on our
Yeah.
guild and the YouTube channel.
Yeah.
The YouTube's all for you, Paulo.
Yes, it
all
is.
for you.
I think you should change it to Mile High Game Guys or Paulo's Mile High Game Guys channel. All right, he says, this was the game that put Stonemaier games on the map. The Kickstarter Deluxe Edition was amazingly produced, full of fantastic components, which I believe the second edition just got most of those, right?
That's what it certainly
Yeah.
seemed like, aside from that grayscale map.
Yeah.
Well, the resources still are different. I think they were like real metal stuff.
Oh, they
like
went
in
to
Scythe and stuff like
full.
that.
yeah,
okay.
like the stone tokens were like gray painted glass beads.
Gotcha. Was the power actual electricity that they somehow harnessed into a token?
It was just they were little capacitors.
Yeah,
Anyone touch them gets shocked. There's just a bunch of dead people.
we've got plenty of blown fuses in case we want to replace those.
It was also a good game. It's not fantastic, but it's very solid with some very interesting mechanics like the worker bumping. I'm interested in seeing what the announced expansion will bring. If it's something like Tuscany did for Viticulture, it will elevate the quality of the game greatly. Now that's what makes me sort of interested in this expansion, is because I didn't really hear much about Viticulture, and then Tuscany came out and everyone's like, fucking Tuscany, oh my god.
Yeah, and even for that matter, like Scythe had a lot of hype for
Yeah.
just Scythe. But from everything I understand, I haven't played any of them, but I've heard the expansions for Scythe are actually fantastic.
Yeah.
Well, I think you played it was the two races, the invaders.
Well,
expansion.
the ones that came with the Kickstarter. I have not played it since people
No.
got Kickstarter copies.
The first expansion was just the two races.
Yeah.
I don't know if
The purple and the dark green.
I think that might have been
Oh.
after our review.
Yes.
Yes, it was.
Yeah, so and he hasn't played it since
No.
then. So
But I think it's the airships that really changed the game that
Yeah.
people liked a lot.
Yes.
yeah. We'll see all
Yeah.
that.
Yeah.
And like I said, I think we all agreed there were some interesting mechanics.
Oh,
with this,
definitely. I think
so.
there's a lot of interesting things happening in the
Yeah.
game.
Wally says, "Holy shit, it's Idiocracy the game. Why have I never heard of this before?" I mean, maybe kind of. There's no Brondo in this game.
No.
Distinct
So-
lack of Brondo.
No.
We'll probably link this in the show notes, but the apocalypse reason for Euphoria, there was like everyone got like a computer implanted in their brain, and they put the main server for the computer on the moon, and then the fusion reactor on the moon imploded and destroyed the moon. And so anyone that had the computer brain like died or passed out, which was 95% of the planet's population, and only these 4 factions survived in a golden city south of St. Louis.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
How
But they
can-
all have like different faction descriptions and
Yeah.
stuff like that.
Okay,
Cool.
that's cool.
Yeah.
But why you've never heard of it before? I couldn't tell you. I don't know what you have and have not heard, so I couldn't give you any reference as to why you have not heard of this.
Wait, what?
He asked, "Why have I never heard of this before?"
Heard of what before?
That's what the guy said in the email or thing.
Oh.
Yeah. All right. Why have I never heard of this before? I don't know. I'm
Because it's an older game and the industry is all about cult of the new and the hotness. Like Black Rose Wars. That's ridiculous. 173 millimeter mini.
that was not correct at all. But okay. 145.
Wow.
We were talking about tenths of meters here.
Yeah, remember? I said 14 points,
Oh,
14.7
whatever.
centimeters.
Right on. Thanks everybody who chimed in over there on the BGG thread. If you've listened to this episode now that it is out and in your ear holes, and you have thoughts and things that you want to share about Euphoria, feel free to jump over to that Board Game Geek Guild. It's guild number 2731, and there's an episode 93 Euphoria thread where you can leave us those thoughts and feelings and things.
I clicked on a link, and then it was like, something came up, so I went to hit X. And then Google's like, did you want us to highlight this X? And so the X was just highlighted instead of pushing the X. And I was like, God damn it.
God damn you, Google.
Yeah.
Otherwise, if you want to get a hold of us, you can always send us emails.
Emails at milehighgameguys.com.
You can find us all over on Twitter. I tweet under at MHGameGuys.
I am Zach_MHGG.
And I'm Jeff_MHGG.
We also have Facebook and Instagram /MileHighGameGuys. And yeah. Be sure to check out the rest of the other awesome contributors over on punchboardmedia.com and all the other awesome content they are putting out. A bunch of awesome folks over there, like What Did You Play This Week, Draft Mechanic, Cardboard Horde, Katie's Game Corner. Bunch of awesome folks. More and more all the time, seems like. It's really grown quite a bit over the last year.
We're clearly the best
awesome.
Network.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Definitely. Yeah, thanks
We
everybody.
are a participant of the best
We
network.
We are a member.
Yeah.
We are clearly the headliner as well.
Mm-hmm.
Sure. But yeah, thanks everybody for tuning in. Hopefully you've enjoyed the episode. As always, I've been your host, Adrian.
I am still Zach.
And I like money, Jeff.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye. So
I just as an aside, apparently if you keep a copy or you keep a can of Rondo for, I want to say 10 plus years now, at some point it's going to be like, fuck you, I'm going to open on my own.
Wait, what?
Yeah. And there's some green shit on the thing that I was storing on that I was like, what the fuck is all of this? And I'm like, the only place it could have come from was that fucking Brondo can.
aluminum cans do not last forever.
No.
I didn't know you had a Brondo can.
Yeah.
I didn't know
they
Brondo was ever actually a thing.
It was a website that basically made it was an energy drink. And me and my friend bought a case of it, and I kept one because I was like, fucking Brondo.
Yeah.
And then it split open. All of a sudden I saw it one day, it split open, and I was like, the fuck is that? And then the next day there's just dried green shit dripping.
That's the electrolytes.
Yeah. It's you know what? It had what that fucking
Plants craved.
it's got what that cabinet craved.
Yeah. Just green shit on it.
Yeah.